when it comes to abusive people or abusive relationships in your life, I'm just thinking about that show, Interview with the Vampire. I know I have a subscriber who's a fan of that show, and I was a fan of that show as well. There's gonna be two types of relationships. It's either gonna be, you're gonna either have a Louis or you're gonna have a Lestat. You know what I mean? You're gonna have a Louis when you have somebody who's, even if they're with you, they're gonna emotionally starve you and not give you any attention. They're going to emotionally starve you, and they're going to just gaslight you and say terrible things about you. Or you're going to have a Lestat. You're going to have somebody who's going to be very upfront about who they are. They say that they're evil. They know that they're evil. Their intentions are going to be really laid out. You know what I mean? And their abuse is going to be very direct. Like, Lestat did not lie about who he was. He was evil. He said he was evil. He showed him who he was. He punched a hole through the priest's head in the first episode. He knew what he was getting into, and he never hid the cards really about who he was, even until the end. You know what I mean? When he was, like talking about the play and his role in the play and things like that, Armand was the one who was lying about it. You know what I mean? Armand was the one who seemed like he was the good boyfriend, but in reality, he wasn't. Like, Lestat wasn't fake like that. But yeah, there's two different people, two types of relationships. There's gonna be Lestat, or there's gonna be a Louis. You know what I mean? And there's gonna be that person who's gonna emotionally starve you yet stay with you. You know what I mean? In some ways, that is worse than having a Lestat in your life. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking about people in my life who have emotionally starved me, who I was in a relationship with, who have gaslighted me, and who have pretended like I didn't matter. They didn't beat the shit out of me. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking about a relationship with somebody that I had. And what triggered me right now to think about that was because, out of all things, it was some random person I was talking to on the internet. And I felt like they were being fake, and they had pretended like they were falling asleep when I was talking or something like that. And it triggered a memory of how my ex used to pretend to do that. You know what I mean? Like, he would pretend to fall asleep because he just he didn't feel like talking to me anymore. And I just remember, I knew that he was still awake. You know what I mean? But whenever, like, he thought I was boring or something, he would just pretend to go to sleep. And I just remember how much that used to, like, hurt me. You know what I mean? That's not like somebody beating the shit out of you, you know what I mean, in terms of abuse, but I feel like that is a mind manipulation. That's a gaslighting technique, and it's just something that made me feel bad. And that reminded me of it just reminded me of what he used to do. You know what I mean? That person online reminded me of that, and it was very triggering to me in that way. But yeah. And then there's another person that I had a relationship with who was like more like a Lestat. You know what I mean? He was very straightforward in his evil. He was very straightforward in his abuse. He was very righteous in his indignation, and he was somebody who was also kind of like trying to teach me things. You know what I mean? It was like a Lestat. He was trying to teach me things. He wanted me to know the breadth of my power, but at the same time, he would also like shit on me at the same time and belittle me. But he was very honest about who he was. He couldn't like, you can't deny that he wasn't being honest. And I had a choice to either stay with that or not stay with that. And of course, just like Lestat, also much later on, he had this flash of conscience, and he cried and stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like between the two, I think they're both problematic. But I'm just thinking about that. I'm just thinking about relationships. I'm thinking about when people gaslight you and emotionally manipulate you. It's just as damaging as somebody physically hurting you. You know what I mean? And it's just as bad as somebody physically hurting you. It's just as bad as somebody physically hurting when you're with somebody and it feels like you're alone because they're not giving you any attention, and they're just there. You know what I mean? They're just kind of like just cold. You know what I mean? And it's, if there's no connection or something like that, that's like how Louis treated, like, Lestat. That's basically when they were going through their problems. You know what I mean? But also, ultimately, Louis got it back himself because that's how Armand sort of treated him at times. So he's like, he got a taste of his own medicine, pretty much. But yeah, that's all I gotta say for now. Relationships are messy. They can be complex.